Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're talking DSLRs, those awesome cameras that'll get you shooting like a pro. We're checking out Retro Revive's October issue, specifically their Beginner's Buyer's Guide to DSLR cameras.
It's a great article. I can already tell this is going to be a fun one.
Right. They cover a bunch of different models, but with so many choices, it's easy to get lost. So, like always, I've brought in an expert to help us navigate this camera jungle.
Always happy to geek out about cameras.
Right. The article starts with the Canon EOS, that's EOS for those new to the DSLR world, Rebel T7, and the Nikon D3500. They sound like good starter cameras, but they're also labeled as older models, so I'm curious, what does that mean for someone just starting out?
Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Older models can still take great pictures, but you might miss out on some of the newer tech, like advanced autofocus systems.
So that's why all my pictures of my dog running around always come out blurry.
Could be. A good autofocus system makes a world of difference, especially for moving subjects. These newer cameras are lightning fast.
Good to know. So, if someone is just starting out, is Wi-Fi connectivity a big deal?
It depends, but it is super convenient for sharing photos instantly or even controlling your camera remotely.
Yeah, that does sound pretty handy. Okay, moving on to camera number 3, the Pentax K-70. The article highlights it being rugged and weather-sealed. What type of photography would this be good for?
Anything adventurous. Think hiking, exploring, maybe even a safari. If you're caught in a downpour, this camera can handle it.
That's so cool. No more worrying about babying your camera. The article also mentions it has a smaller sensor. Does that really make a difference?
It can. A smaller sensor might not gather as much light, which could be a problem in low-light situations. You might need to bump up your ISO or use a faster lens.
So maybe not the best for those moody, candlelit restaurant shots.
Exactly. Now, if you're looking for something compact, the Canon EOS Rebel SL3 is a great option.
It looks super lightweight.
Oh.
Would this be good for vloggers?
Definitely. It's easy to hold for long periods, and the flip-out touchscreen is perfect for framing yourself while filming. However, it does have limited autofocus points, which might be a problem if you're moving around a lot.
So you might end up with a blurry mess if you're walking and talking.
Yeah, the camera might struggle to keep up. And lastly, we have the Nikon D3600. This one seems to be packed with features.
Yeah, the article calls it a well-rounded camera and mentions its advanced features. What can you do with this camera that you can't do with the others?
It has excellent image quality, more autofocus points than the SL3, and allows for really precise control over your settings. It's a bit more of a step up in terms of features and price.
So it sounds like it has it all. But with so many great options, how does someone even begin to choose?
That's the fun part. It's all about figuring out your needs and priorities.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, and I'm already starting to feel a little overwhelmed with all these options.
Don't worry, we're here to break it down. It's really about finding the right camera for you, not the best camera on the market.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Like, what kind of pictures do you want to take?
Right, are we talking stunning landscapes or like those emotional close-up portraits? What about action shots?
Exactly. Are you trying to capture your dog catching a frisbee in midair? Each of those needs a different approach. There's no one camera that does it all.
So true. So if someone's really into like hiking and wants to take photos in nature, what would you recommend from this list?
Well, the Pentax K-70 that we talked about with the weather sealing, that would be a great choice. But if you're more about those candid moments with friends and family, you might want something with a really fast autofocus, like the Nikon D5600.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, of course, budget is always a factor.
Oh, absolutely. You don't have to spend a fortune to get a decent DSLR. Those entry-level Canons and Nikons we talked about, they're a great place to start. You know, learn the basics without breaking the bank.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of learning, the article mentioned that Retro Revive has another article all about lenses, which feels like a whole other deep dive.
Oh, it is. Lenses are so important.
Yeah. In what way?
Think of it like this. You can have the most amazing oven in the world, right? But if you're using like the cheapest ingredients, your cake is not going to taste as good.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Lenses are like the ingredients for your camera. You know, they make all the difference.
So we've talked about what you want to shoot, budget, and lenses.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else our listeners should keep in mind before they buy a DSLR?
Don't underestimate the power of touch.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about actually holding the camera in your hands before you buy it.
Oh, so like try before you buy.
Exactly. Go to a store and like play around with a few different models, you know, see how they feel.
See if the buttons are in the right spot, if the menu makes sense.
Right. You're going to be spending a lot of time with this camera. Make sure it feels good in your hands.
Like it's an extension of your creativity, not just some like clunky piece of tech.
Yes,
I
exactly.
love that.
Yeah.
So it's more than just megapixels and zoom. It's about finding a camera that you connect with.
Yes. The best camera is the one that you actually enjoy using.
That's so true. All right, so let's recap everything we've learned today. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different things. What would you say is like the most important takeaway for someone who's new to all of this?
I think the biggest thing to remember is there's no one best DSLR. It's all about finding the best camera for you and your needs.
So it's less about the specs and more about like how it feels in your hands.
Exactly.
Right.
Like we talked about, we looked at the Canon EOS Rebel T7 and the Nikon D7500. Those are great for beginners on a budget. Then there's the Pentax K-70, which is perfect for outdoor adventurers. And for vloggers, the Canon EOS Rebel SL3 is super compact.
Right. And who could forget the Nikon D5600?
Yeah,
Packed with features.
exactly. So many great options out there.
So before you run off to buy a camera, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
Don't forget to rent before you buy.
Oh, yeah, that's so important. It's like dating before you get married.
Exactly. It gives you a chance to see if you're really compatible. Make sure the camera fits your shooting style.
And then it makes you excited to get out there and take photos. Well, this has been an awesome deep dive. We've covered a ton of ground today, from understanding all the different DSLR options to figuring out which camera might be your perfect match.
And don't forget about lenses.
Oh, yeah, right. Retro Revive has another article all about that in this issue. So once you've found your dream camera, you can start building your lens collection.
So much to explore.
This is just the beginning. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.